the thought of like going robbing a car with the mates, as much as I know there's consequences of that, it's actually quite fun and quite exciting as well. So you've got to kind of have that element of fun and excitement in something else, like kind of to make it a viable alternative.
The thinking behind the match was around having somebody with a bit of life that's going to drag him out and get him involved in stuff and kind of pick him up a little bit. And you've met Jody, she's infectious. Oh. She wouldn't allow him to kind of wallow or anything like that. It'd be like, you haven't got a choice in this matter. You're coming with me and we're going to do this and you are going to have fun.
To me, it's just someone that it's a mutual figure, someone that you can trust, and you can, like I said before, you can just go out and do them things that if you're left to your own devices, you'd probably just put off and think, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll do that tomorrow. And then you got meant to come on, let's go and get that done today. It just gives you that extra bit of motivation, and it can really get things moving. And then people usually find that once they've done something with the mentor a couple of times, what was the big deal about that? Why have I been putting that off for so long? And then they can do it themselves. So, they've learnt a new skill.
Having somebody who kind of has some sort of understanding about their perspective, who can play a kind of mediator type role with them and their offender manager and any other services that they're involved in, and explain things in a way that they understand and why things are happening. It's just so helpful in them kind of navigating that process and coming through that process, as well as looking at like the person-centered stuff around them about where they want their life to be.
One of the things that I took from the film was the normalcy that was provided by Jody that in some respects you didn't get from the probation officer. The probation officer, when we saw her talking to Josh, was in a probation office in a very confrontational sitting. They were sitting opposite each other, sitting next to each other or adjacent to each other. They were sitting, directly facing each other. And it was a very formal setting. And in that respect, it's a very unnormal, uncomfortable setting to do work. And the running around, and hence the title of the film. And that was in a very normal setting. It was in a park somewhere and in a theatre and sitting on doorsteps. And in some respects, one of the things I suspect that probation supervision has lost is the street.
We had our project researched by someone that was doing a PhD, and she said it was like really important in terms of identity shift. So what she meant by that is it makes those things seem normal, like kind of, being out of the office, going for a jog, going for a coffee, things away from offending and drugs. It makes them seem, normal. And then, like I say, it's learning a new skill. And why have I made such a big deal about this? I can do this. I feel okay here.
We know from many studies that particularly people who've been through the mill in terms of offending, as Josh obviously had, they find it hard. They want to be normal, but the process of becoming normal when you've been living an offending life is actually significantly different from the ordinary process of leading a normal life, and it's hard to get there, and that's essentially what he was saying. And then notice that there was a bit of a downward spiral, which he admitted, and that's fairly typical as well. That that the process is not on a steady upward trip. It has ups and downs. And how you manage those downward spirals is absolutely crucial.
The situation of temptation, which is very typical from the work that Tony Bottoms and I have been doing, that kind of situation of temptation. You meet up with your old friends and they suggest that, hey, in 2 hours' time you can have money, you can do this, etc. And you should be saying no, but to say no, you have to believe that there is a possible way of doing differently.
That everyone at some stage will have doubts about the changes that they're making. Like I said before, like kind of you started to make them changes, and they'll always go through a spell where they're thinking, you know what, maybe I should just sack this all off and go back to what I know. And it's about, like Pete said, about being able to sometimes they won't just turn up and tell you that. Sometimes you'll just notice that the mind's not focused, and it's about being able to drag that out of them when they're honest and to talk it through and to establish why they're thinking that way and what's going to help them get back on track. And that's the really, really skilled bit of mentoring. Not everyone can do that, like kind of, it's quite, to notice when someone's the way they present's changed and stuff like that, and to talk through why. It's quite a hard thing to do.
Well, I think one of the interesting things is the kind of work which, unfortunately, but things may be changing, but unfortunately in the past has had to happen under the counter. So it's about not breaching people, it's about not recalling people, it's about not so much turning a blind eye or a deaf ear, but accepting that routes out have obstacles in them, and that sometimes people trip over these obstacles, and that those trips and those falls themselves can be positive in that they remind people of what it is that they were doing in the past, and they provide people with incentives not to do it again, because messing up isn't a lot of fun. And so it's not the mess up, it's how you respond to that mess up in ways which is creative and enables the broad direction of travel to be maintained, allowing for the fact that there will be stumbling blocks on the way.
Steve's research has this, and my oral history had it, that the good probation officers who did good work didn't necessarily exercise profound influence immediately on those people, but they left a kind of imprint which became a legacy later, and those were memories and role models that were drawn upon when people embarked on desistance, and being close to and in a person's mind as they face temptation, as they face struggles, as they seek reinforcement, that matters.
Actually, I think that if you have like kind of a mentor, that's not your probation officer, so you can actually really like develop a relationship of trust, and that that the mentor is not going to like tell if you are like going into temptation, that they will put more control on you or things like that. It was amazing for me how this guy actually trusted on the mentor, considering that the mentor is not someone like directly attached to him.
When you walk into a probation office under supervision on licence, your front's up and you're presenting in a certain way. As soon as you step out of that, you let that go. Your situation's there where you're just having a chat with somebody, who doesn't have to be there, but they're there for you, do you know what I mean? And just having a chat in that setting, it just makes it all real, where you can have that level of honesty, you can have that level of relaxation where you feel comfortable and talk about what you want to talk about, really. And I think it's by only having that you can actually start working together to go somewhere.
I found in my work, much as what was demonstrated in that film, in that it's not always a material thing that people were after in order to work their way out of crime. It was more around the relationship side of things, building trust, building or finding someone rather than something, if you like, in their life. So not necessarily being handed another program or another, even a house sometimes, or a job. Those things are critically important. But unless you can have someone there to go on that kind of journey with and put that new world together, oftentimes you're going to stumble.
What the mentoring program was doing was quite a number of very different things. So it was actually giving him some things to do with his time, the jogging and the classes and all sorts of things, and also somebody to talk to who would care, at least treat him as someone with potential for the future, and someone who was worthwhile and who could work and who could be a normal member of society, which is what he wanted to do.
To me, the most powerful line in the film was where he explained. He said he was ashamed of what he did, but you have to understand at the time I didn't care about myself, and so how could I care about other people? And I thought that was really nicely put, because oftentimes for all of us, we struggle to get inside the mind of how could somebody do that. I mean, I could imagine burglaring a house maybe if I was desperate, but I would never do it when someone was home. I would never, invade someone like that. But his and only he, someone who's done something like that, can help us explain that part of human nature. He explained it beautifully well, and I think what the mentor relationship was able to do was to make him care about himself again, and one cares about themselves when others care about them. So it's very much a dynamic, reflective sort of process, and we see this in our interviews all the time, just maybe not said as eloquently as he put it, but the mentor made him like himself, and once he liked himself again, it would have been impossible there for him to get back into that logic of doing something like he did with the burglary.
We need to provide people the chance to stop reoffending, to actually feel as though they can be part of that community when they come out the other side of the gates, and that people care. And I think all those things together mean that it does make a difference. We don't go out positively to say to our tenants and residents, this is a programme that works with ex-offenders. We say, this is part and parcel of everything that we do. And I think as that is a much, and it's a bit simplistic, but it's a much better way of talking about things, because it's just part of the service. And I think as being part of the service, people don't make a difference or say they should be wearing orange bibs or something. It's that. When you see some of those community payback schemes and people are wearing the orange uniforms, you might put arrows on and put chain gang on it. It's just, I don't know. It's not for us. Thanks very much. Yeah. So we have an opportunity, whatever scale we are, to reach out into our communities and do something that's going to make a difference. And I think working with people who have done things in the past that they may well regret, and they're looking for a chance to redeem themselves and put something back into the community is important. And I think we're duty bound to reach out and do that. And I would challenge all businesses to think what they could do to make a difference. And we're proud of what we do, and we're proud of colleagues like Josh who come in, work bloody hard to make a difference, and we want to be proud of what we do to help support them. And I would challenge all businesses to be equally proud of what they do.
If I could be a part of somebody not going back to prison and creating an amazing life or a complete new path, then I will, and I think it's a great opportunity.
I'm not trying to spin, it's just my long legs.